Today, we're looking at a red ink by Herbin Rouge Bourgogne. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. There's timestamps down below where you can skip around, but if you've got the time, I'd appreciate you checking out the entire video. Now, you can follow me on Instagram as an ink guy, and if you like fountain pen ink reviews, don't forget to subscribe. In order to make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples. I then inked up this Duke 209 with a Fude nib. I wrote with it for a day and used it to take the notes for this video. In order to have some standardization in my writing samples, I always use Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. Now, let's look at the writing sample. I picked this ink up in sample form, so it came in a vial like this. And to keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X750, running away from me, with a Goulet extra fine. Let's take a look at the Clairfontaine. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather, spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is a bit lighter than the stub with no feather, spread, halo sheen. It does have some shading that goes on throughout here. That's not too bad, very subtle. 8 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the extra fine with no feather, spread, halo sheen. Same very subtle shading. You look at words like dog and jumps and you can see where it stands out, the difference between them. Now 11 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation, although we are getting some in the writing. Tomoe River. No bleeding, normal Tomoe River ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. I'm going to take that back on halo. I see quite a bit of haloing going on in the Bourgogne. The extra fine is a bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shading, 14 seconds to dry. Now the medium is the same tone as the extra fine with no feather spread. It does offer some halo. No sheen, it does offer some shade. Now the halo and the sheen, or the halo and the shade show up together. Look at the word quick, how it starts darker and it's got a little halo. It gets lighter, no halo, gets darker, halo again. So it is there, 20 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation, although the medium we did get some and it's very nice. And Rhodia, with no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. The extra fine is a bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen. It does offer some very nice shading throughout here. 9 seconds to dry. The medium is a hair darker than the extra fine, a hair lighter than the, well, still a bit lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, and it does offer some very nice shading. Look at that word fox, the word lazy, the word brown. A lot that's very nice. 13 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby of the extra fine shows more color variation than the medium, but we did get quite a bit in the medium writing samples. I agree with Vita that I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and immediately put it into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And we see that this is really running away from that water. It's pushing all the way up. And you see that red there, but at the very top of that red, you see a very bright magenta as a line across the top. So it's not just red, but there's magenta here, which is where we're getting the shading. The one on the right, I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water. And it really looks the same. If I didn't mark these as one for dry, I don't know that I'd be able to tell which one came first. I'm not expecting much resistance. Resistance tests are done to see how well this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it might be to clean from your pen. I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, I would not use this in a note-taking situation if I wanted to highlight because of the amount of blowout that's occurring. I want to protect those notes. Now, water is completely removing this. It is not completely removed. That's only 30 seconds of it sitting there, and we're just about to start to see the white of the paper coming through. Water is all that it took to get it out of my pen. Now, pen flush does more than what water did, but we're still not seeing the white of the paper. Still, that's only 30 seconds of it sitting there, and I didn't need to use that. The 1/3 bleach solution is completely obliterating it. For the inks I've tested, I have found an average viscosity of 2.5, with a realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. I'm also linking a video that shows how I do my testing and my calculations. Herbin Rouge Bourgogne has a viscosity of 1.72, making this a wet ink. To find my average dry times, I use my writing samples done on Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. I average all of those. Now, for the inks I've tested, I found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with a realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Herbin Rouge Bourgogne has an average dry time of 13 seconds, making its dry time normal. Instead of finding inks that look like Herbin Rouge Bourgogne, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I decided to go with a brown, and I chose Diamine's Dark Chocolate. The second writing sample is done on Apica CD, Franklin Christoph, and black and red notebooks. Here we're looking at the Apica CD notebooks. Now we get no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is quite a bit lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen. We do see spots of shading which occur that are a bit darker, 7 seconds to dry. Medium is just a little bit darker than just a little bit lighter than the stub, quite a bit darker than the extra fine, with no feather spread, halo sheen, very nice shading throughout this writing, 9 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby for both in the far left to far right, you do see some color variation, and we get that in the writing. Franklin Christoph paper. Now we do get some light bleed and light ghosting that's occurring with the stub. Nothing else, just to be aware of it. Doesn't touch the page underneath, doesn't stop you from using the back of the page. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is a bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 5 seconds to dry. Medium is just a tad darker than the extra fine, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade. The scrubby for both are showing us no color variation, and we're not getting it in the writing. And black and red notebooks, with no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen. It does offer some shade spots in the writing, 4 seconds to dry. Medium is about the same tone as the extra fine, with no feather spread, halo sheen, still offering some shade spots in the writing, 6 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both do show some good color variation, and we do get that in our sample. And that's all that I have for the writing samples. So what do I think of Herbin Rouge Bourgogne? As a red, it manages to put some shade down on the page frequently, which is not a common thing for red inks to be able to do. This particular red tone is not too bad to look at. As somebody who doesn't tend to care for reds, I do find this one pretty interesting to look at. So what nib and pen are going to give the best writing experience with this ink? I found that very wet pens drowned out the shading that it has to offer, but I preferred the tone from drier, finer pens with this ink. I put out a new ink review every single day, so that if you're not already subscribed, I'm going to remind you, go ahead and subscribe. Thanks for watching.